Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Man, do I have a story for you guys today. Imagine renting your car out to a meth head criminal on Turo and it getting stolen and just being caught up in a crazy situation. Well, that's exactly what happened to me. So I'm going to share this story with you guys and share with you guys 4 tips on what to do if you find yourself in a crazy extreme situation like the one that I encountered. Now, I waited quite some time to release this story. This happened a while back because it was just such an insane situation dealing with some really off brand people. I wanted to make sure that it was safe to sort of publicly put this information out there, and more so to really just share that experience and really give you the best pieces of advice when something like this happens and how to really go about it and how to handle it. Because you have to think, in the lifespan of doing Turo, it is inevitable that you will encounter not so ideal situations. However, the silver lining to this is that I've had over 3,000 rentals on the platform, and I've never really encountered anything as this extreme of a situation. So the probability of something like this happening is incredibly rare. This is 6 years later, almost 3,000 trips into a platform when first experiencing something like this. So I don't know, what is the percentage on that? Like something like 0.0003% or something really minimal. So the probability of you experiencing something like this is probably not going to be great. But if you do even experience anything in the realm of this, dealing with somebody shady, you can definitely utilize these 4 tips. So let's get into the story. This occurred with my 6 Series BMW, which is considered a super deluxe car on the platform because it has a very high market value, which typically means that I get amazing renters for this because Turo requires a high deposit. The car is quite expensive. The minimum day rate on that car is $280 per day in the LA market. So it usually filters out most scrupulous people, right? But not in this case. That didn't quite work out. It was a Turo Go rental, which means that it was a contactless handoff. I did not have to do any license or ID verification because Turo's Turo Go system handles all of that. So basically the guest shows up to the car, they go in through the check-in process on their reservation, Turo will verify their ID and then give them permission to unlock the car and retrieve the key. When the booking came in, everything was normal. Communication was good. It was for a high dollar amount, almost $1,000. And there was no red flags. There was absolutely no red flags other than the renter was a new renter on the platform. But there's tons of new renters on the platform. So nothing that made me raise my eyebrows or think that, there was anything fishy about what was going on. So the trip began and all was good until one day throughout the trip, I get a message from the renter saying, hey, your car's been impounded and I was at the police station last night. You need to give me another car. And the way his message was worded was very odd. So that was already a red flag to begin with. So right away, I checked the location of the car and sure enough, it is in an impound yard. And so just by looking at the impound yard, I could see already which city it was in, which likely meant that it was towed by that city's police department. So first thing was that I try to communicate back with the renter and just try to get as much information as I could. And then the line of questioning from the renter got really suspicious, right? He started to say, I want a refund, but I want it in cash. You need to give me another car at no cost. You need to come deliver it to me. I was like, oh, okay, this is definitely not a normal person that I'm dealing with. So before I jump into tip number 1 of what to do when you find yourself in a situation like this, check out this clip of when I first grabbed the car from the tow yard and kind of what it looked like, and before I really knew exactly what was inside of it. One of my cars was impounded and I have never seen anything like this in all the years. I mean, it looks like these people were living in this car. They pulled the tracker out, one of them, but luckily this car has multiple trackers. And there's like a bong and a pipe in there. I mean, this stuff right here, there's some mail and it does not belong to the renter even. I mean, shoes, clothes, cologne, like you name it. It is all in here. I haven't even looked at anything because it's disgusting and I don't want to touch anything, but it is nuts. And let me go to the back. I mean, there's just a bunch of crap back here. It looks like they try to mess with like the fuse box. I mean, this is just wild. So I'm gonna get into this a little bit more and figure. So it was absolutely crazy. I didn't even really know what I was looking at when I pulled that car from the impound yard, and it was just filthy and awful and not something that you want to get in or touch anything. And it was just, ooh. So tip number one is this. Don't do handoffs, pickups, or drop-offs at your home location, at your residential address, just for privacy purposes. You know, most people are good and it's never really an issue, but you just never know when you're going to stumble upon that one person that could possibly be dangerous, that could possibly put you in a situation that is unsafe. In all the years that I've done Turo, I do not do handoffs at my house, near my home, because I just don't want to put myself at that type of risk. So please, I urge you, if you are in a situation to where, you know, you can't exactly go to an external location, then at least do it a little ways from your house. Find an area where it's safe, a public location, a park, a Starbucks, or anything like that, and do your handoffs there. That way it keeps you, and if you have a family, it keeps all of you guys safe and it maintains your privacy. This is very, very, very important. All right, so let's move forward with the story. So the guest is communicating with me, telling me all kinds of crazy stuff. And at this point, you know, I have no idea what's happened, why the car was impounded. He couldn't even really tell me why. I kept asking him. And that leads me to tip number 2. When you find yourself in a situation that seems off, where you even have the slightest inkling that, hey, maybe something shady is going on or things are just not right, you want to make sure that you maintain really good communication and well-documented communication. So in this situation, even though my guest was so off base and nothing he was saying was making sense, I always make sure that I remain really nice and kind to people in these situations, because the kinder that you are to them, the nicer that you are to them, it makes it easier for you as the host to ask them questions and gather more information. You want them to talk, you want them to tell you things so that you can put the pieces together and get a better understanding for what's happening. And you always want to do this through your reservation trip messaging, or second best option is through text message. Don't do this over the phone, because you want to have that written documentation. It's very important for if you come to a point where maybe there is damage to the car or you need to get reimbursements like I needed to, you need to have all of that information there to make your case to Turo, and so that it paints a picture. So that is tip number 2. Be nice, be kind, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Just do it in a really nice way. So in this situation, I said things like, okay, can you tell me more about when the car was impounded? What time, what city, which police department? So that started giving me a clue into what was going on. You know, and he said really weird things like, oh, it happened last night and the cops took me in and there was something wrong with your car. It's like, okay, why would they take you in? That doesn't make any sense. And then he said, I want my reimbursement in cash because they took all my property. If they took your stuff, that means you were definitely up to something shady, you know? And so slowly I was getting more information out of him, which was telling me that I'm definitely dealing with somebody who is shady and there is something really wrong going on here. So that is tip number 2. Be kind, continue to ask questions, and make sure that you're doing it through trip messaging. So at this point, I already know that I'm dealing with somebody who's shady, and I'm just kind of entertaining the conversation with him because he's asked me to give him cash and give him another car, and I'm just trying to get more information out of him. So he's taking forever to respond back to me with the details that actually matter, like, hey, when did this happen? Why do you think it happened? What did the cops say to you? Why did they take your things? And then the primary question that I was asking him is, what city did this happen in? I just wanted to get that in written documentation. But by that time, because I have a tracker on my car, I was already able to see where it was at for the impound yard. And I just called the police department to that city. And sure enough, as soon as I called, I gave them the license plate number and told them that, as far as my understanding goes, it was impounded probably the night before. They were able to find the car right away and tell me exactly where it was impounded to. Now, the interesting thing about this situation was that apparently there was an arrest made, right? So as soon as the cop told me that on the phone, I knew that this was serious and something bad definitely went down. And all I could hope for at that point was that hopefully the car is okay and that it's in one piece and hopefully it didn't get into an accident. The renter didn't say anything about that, but obviously not a trusted source. Now, what's interesting when an arrest is made is that even though I'm the owner of the car, they actually cannot release any information about the incident that took place because there was an arrest made. For whatever reason, that changes the circumstance. So right away, I had to go to the police department because you need to get a release form and they want, proof of ownership. So please be prepared to always have a copy of your registration and your license if you are the registered owner of that car, because when it gets impounded, you cannot get the car out without that information. This is why I always keep multiple copies of my car registrations, because they can easily go missing if you leave them in the car. People can accidentally throw them out, or if you get your cars professionally washed, they can easily get thrown out as well. So always have extra copies of your registrations. I keep extra paper copies and I keep copies on my phone as well. So I have paper copies in case there's an emergency. So I took that stuff, go to the police station, and this is also another time when being nice really, really helps. And I don't know, maybe being a girl helps too. But when I got there, I really was curious to know about what happened. I just wanted to know what the story was. In a way, it's kind of fascinating because it's like, what are people up to where crazy stuff like this happens? The officer was super nice. He printed out the report and he was like, look, I can't really disclose any information to you because there was an arrest made. All I can tell you is that it was pretty serious. When he printed out the report, he was like, look, you can see for yourself that majority of it is redacted. I was like, wow, I feel like I'm in an episode of like CSI or something. I want to know more. So I kind of just got to talking to him and I explained to him the situation. I was like, hey, look, this is a part of my business. Obviously, I'm not involved in this situation. Clearly, you can tell I have nothing to do with it. But in order for me to make sure I can properly go through my insurance and claim for any damage that may have been caused, I need as much information as I possibly can get so that I can make my case to my insurance and just really thoroughly document everything. And I probably asked him like 10 times before he told me anything. So sometimes you just have to be really persistent and be really nice and explain to people what your situation is. And at some point, they'll level with you, right? I was really not taking no for an answer in that situation. So finally, he just gave me little tidbits without, getting himself in trouble. And basically, he told me that there was a man and a woman in the car. The name that I gave him of the renter who was on the reservation did not match the names that were on the arrest report. So apparently, my renter may have been involved in it. I can't say for certain, but he was not the one that was arrested. So that's interesting. They were pulled over for speeding around 3:30 in the morning. So obviously you're dealing with people who are not so bright given everything that was left in the car. And they were both arrested for drug charges and drug possession and attempt to sell drugs as well. So it was a whole mess of things. And that was pretty much all I was able to gather for that. Which brings me to tip number 3. Documentation of not only the communication with your guests, but of all the physical parts to that reservation when you're in a crazy situation like this. So in this example, there was a release report from the police station, which cost me $100. And they only take cash. So it's not like I had a credit card transaction. So I had to make sure I got a receipt and written documentation from them that they do charge $100 for the release record to then go to the impound impound yard and get the car. So you want to make sure you get all of that documentation. And then finally, when I went to the impound yard, I had to pay, I think it was another $400 or so to get the car out of impound. And you want to make sure that you get all the receipts and documentation for that as well, because all of these things are going to be necessary when you report all of this to Turo, and you want to get those reimbursements back because you as a host are not liable for those costs associated with the incident. Now, I went to the impound yard, got the car. You guys saw a quick little clip of what I found in it, but once I actually, got everything disinfected and, built up the strength to actually get in that car, it was crazy all the things that I found in there, and it really lined up with what the cop was telling me. So here are a couple of pictures that you guys can see in terms of some of the stuff that I found. It was everything from pipes, which apparently you smoke meth out of. I did not know that. Somebody had to tell me that. Car keys, hotel room keys. It looks like they were living in the car. They pulled out my tracker that was just a plug-in that's old, but there is a built-in tracker in that car, so I had multiple trackers. They messed with the fuse box, as you can see from the video, so I don't know if they were trying to disable the in-car tracking, which in a way, the way I looked at it was, I'm pretty sure that this car had no intentions of coming back to me. So it's good that these people got pulled over and arrested and the car got impounded, because otherwise I really think that I would have not gotten that car back. And clearly they're up to something shady. It looks like they're living in the car. There's drugs. There's a bunch of mail with other people's names on it, debit cards with other people's names on it. Like, just all of it looks so shady. A computer, a printer. So, they're up to no good. That's a fact. So you want to make sure you document everything that you see. And by the way, all this stuff that was left behind, this is post the cops going through the entire car and confiscating a bunch of stuff that was probably drugs and who knows what else. So this was all that was left behind. And, I did ask the police station if they could take everything, but because of COVID, they couldn't. So everything just had to kind of get discarded into trash, and you're not responsible for it as a host. And I wanted nothing to do with it. So I left it all at the police station in the trash, and that was that. So that documentation is very important. I have a really good video that I've done in the past which shows you how to document your car properly for any trip. And you need to do this because when I go and claim for cleaning or any damage that was done to the car, Turo does need to see those pre-trip photos. So it's very important. You can click on this card to watch that video. Make sure you have that down. Do not let your car go out on a trip until you have that documentation done thoroughly and properly. And finally, tip number 4, you want to report it to Turo right away. Now, in this situation, the trip had technically not ended, but this was an insane situation. So right away, I called Turo. If you follow the prompts, given this situation, they have a prompt to reach their trust and safety team. So that is who I contacted right away. And because so much was going on in this situation, I just had to get on the phone and kind of explain it to them over the phone what happened so that they can give me guidance on what to do next. Now, I did certain things to kind of protect myself in this situation. I did not upload any photos for the trip checkout because I did not want the guests to see that I was in possession of the car, that it was with me, and that maybe there was stuff left behind in it. So when I spoke to Trust and Safety, I was like, I would like to send you guys these photos directly so that there is not any documentation on the end of the guest and it doesn't expose me to any risk with a potentially harmful person. They were totally understanding about it. They worked with me. And this is where Turo has some really amazing systems and processes put in place. They're very good about handling things like this. They want to make sure that they protect the host and that you're in one piece and that everything is taken care of. So, I don't really worry a whole lot when things like this happen because they are so few and far between. It's incredibly rare. Like I said, 1 in 3,000 over the span of 6 years. It's incredibly unlikely for something like this to happen. But if it does, you can really remain confident in the fact that Turo knows what they're doing and they know how to handle this. They literally have teams dedicated to handling crazy situations like this. So got on the phone with them, submitted everything to them directly, got all the reimbursements from them for, the release from the police department, the tow yard, gas, cleaning, any damages that were done to the car. It was all handled fair and square, and it was no issue. That renter got banned from the platform, obviously. And, I think Turo does their own investigation with people like that. I don't really know what that looks like, but I know that they have their own system where they try to figure out what they can do to avoid people like that coming onto the platform. And one thing that I can say from being on the platform for 6 years now is that I have definitely seen over the years the quality of renters get better and better and better, which is why I'm so optimistic about being on this platform, is because as the years go on, the quality of hosts and renters get better. They get better at filtering renters out. They get better at just really qualifying who is going to be of good quality to rent from you. So this was really my crazy experience. One of the craziest ones that I've ever had from the photos and the videos that you guys have seen. I'm showing you a real limited amount because it's crazy, right? But things happen. Luckily for this one, it was as easy as just really getting everything cleaned out and thoroughly inspecting the car and little compartments and under the seats to make sure that there was nothing left behind. It was good that the cops had already gone through the car once, and I'm sure, they looked for everything they possibly could, but I wanted to make sure that I went through it really thoroughly myself. I got it professionally cleaned and washed and disinfected, and I actually didn't rent it out for, I would say, at least a solid week and a half or so, because I just wanted to make sure that it was fully aired out and it was clean and there was no aftermath of this situation. And once I was in the clear, then I was like, okay, this car is good to go. We'll get it back on the road and everything is squared away. So those are the 4 tips that you really want to utilize if you find yourself in a sticky situation or you have a guest that is just really hard to deal with. And always rest assured that Turo does have the systems in place to make sure that you are covered as a host. It's a part of your host protection plan, and that is why you can feel confident in listing on a platform like Turo. All right, you guys, if you like this crazy story and this video, hopefully you guys found some value in it. I would love it if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel. I hope that you guys find this helpful in your future endeavors on Turo. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, my name is Saima, and this is Saima's Experience, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care, guys.